Right. Hello, my name's Catherine Jonet. I'm a associate professor in gender and sexuality studies. I've been associate professor in gender and sexuality studies for 16 years. And through that, like my colleague Mary Bonatti, who spoke in the first panel, she and Laura and I were all hired essentially by Waded Cruzado. Waded Cruzado is the one who you hear a lot about if you come to NMSU, and constantly she's spoken of as this bright, shining moment and a missed opportunity of the institution. And while she was here, she created our jobs, because before then, what was women's studies was a supplementary major that many people worked to open and create as a structure. But because then interim president Cruzado wanted to elevate the field and become a leader here in southern New Mexico, she wanted it to be a department. And because of that, she was able to at least to get it to have a faculty attached to it. And because of that is why we're still here, even though we no longer have our own interdisciplinary studies department and are trying to work out of other departments on the campus. That is so important, because across the United States, women's gender and sexuality studies academic programs are not only being taken apart and divested in, but there's also political movements in certain states, whereas with legislatures seeking to defund women's and gender and sexuality studies. I know that you spoke a little bit about the Don't Say Gay law in Florida and other states, but just know that sometimes you may not reach your highest goal, like reaching a departmental status, which again, we have been working toward for 35 years. But that fact that then interim president Cruzado was able to get us a faculty, and that members of that faculty have maintained with less and less to do more and more, it means that at some level we are doing the work simply because we still exist. So thank you for being here today, and thank you for being a part of this panel. This panel is deeply connected to the work that Laura and I do, and that we bring to gender and sexuality studies as people in critical theory and what's called cultural studies, and also creative media. So in our work, we don't always have the traditional outputs of scholars. We try to put our research often in creative forms, such as filmmaking. Laura is a comics artist and an illustrator, so she puts her ideas and theory and graphic narrative, and also our film festival that we curate called Feminist Border Arts Film Festival, which will be on Pride Day weekend this year at the University Art Museum. That's June 28 and 29. Thank you very much. Free and open to the public. And one of our featured filmmakers is here right now. Her name is Ryan Rocks. She is a Borderlands filmmaker. And we are so excited because we are the New Mexico premiere of Ryan's feature film debut. It's so exciting for us. And also on the second day of the festival, when Professor Razo was here, he mentioned we are having what is called a Zine Fest. And that's where people who make zines come and table, and you can buy their zines from them and talk to them and swap and check it out. So that's going to be a lot of fun, and also, even if you don't realize it, a lot of learning. So let's step on, because I'm hoping some of these, I might see these zines, right? Okay, so let's just go in. Zines, short for fanzines, are self-published, non-commercial print works that are typically produced in small batches. They originated as a medium for fan communities to express their interests, but have grown to encompass a wide range of subjects, including art, politics, personal narrative, and social issues. Zines are known for their DIY ethos, that's do it yourself, and that part of zines, from going from fanzines to really having the DIY ethos and a political voice, is because of punk. It was really punk, and punk wanting to take over the means of production and create your own production. So that politics and do-it-yourself of modern zine making is a gift of punk. And it's a medium that allows diverse voices to be heard without the need or approval of traditional publishing or even academic gateways. This aspect makes them an ideal medium for exploring and disseminating ideas related to social justice, participatory media, and grassroots activism. Zines have decades-long histories in feminist and queer movements. Taking it from the punk again, it was the feminist and queer movements in the 80s and 90s that gave new breath to zines. Some of you may have heard of the Riot Girl movement in the 90s, and then there's a corresponding movement that's less known that actually originated in Canada. Canada does not get enough cultural credit. That was called queercore, and a lot of that was in reaction to the mainstreaming of LGBTQ plus rights, and focusing on certain privileged issues and not community uplift, and also facing the rising AIDS pandemic. So that's how that activism came about. For the projects we're talking about here today are ones that our colleague Cinthia Bejarano set up some connections with us of people that we didn't know that we wish we did know, and are so happy to know now. And Laura facilitated zine workshops that help germinate certain kinds of freedom for everyone to be able to make things. And the overall idea of the project is participatory media principles, and that is to empower media makers to become not just consumers of information, but creators of content that reflects their perspectives, their concerns, and most of all, their aspirations. Thank you so much. I'm going to turn it over to the panelists now. Thank you.
I'm Kayla Myers, and I'm a teacher at New America High School. And yeah, so we created this panel project as an idea of Cinthia Bejarano, who introduced me to more of the faculty from Gender and Sexuality Studies. And we were just originally going to do kind of a classroom presentation of what Sexuality Studies is, because my class is Gender and Ethnic Studies. So we wanted that connection with NMSU. And then they came in hot with this big box of zines and all these ideas, and then it just kind of blossomed and came to be what it is now. So we created this anthology. You can see them on the tables outside. Our Queer Icons, or Our Queer Zines is what it's called. So the cover art was done by one of our students who's in the audience today. And then students each just picked one of the queer icons that they looked up to and created their zines. So this is like 159 pages, I think, of queer wonderfulness. We have everything from Freddie Mercury to Cassandro to Wanga to Gladys Bentley to just everyone you can imagine, even including some queer icons that were fictional, that were created. So the assignment that I gave in true holding with what zines are is they can pick a queer icon from the past, the present, or the future, even somebody who they've created out of their imagination. Thanks. So students, their imaginations were absolutely incredible, the things that they came up with. And they did all the artwork and the creating and the duct tape and the glitter. My classroom will never not have glitter in it now. But they created something gorgeous. And then they gave us the option of getting it printed. So now we have these wonderful copies of our project. So that's kind of a general overview of what we did in my classroom, but I wanted to turn it over to students to talk a little bit more about their specific creations. We had about 28 students make zines, and then we have 3 very brave students here today to give us more insight into what they did and why they chose what they chose. So I'll pass it over to them.
Hi, my name is Evelyn, and I made a zine about Gladys Bentley. I made this zine because I liked how inspirational Gladys Bentley's story was. I like how careless she is. I like it because I wish that's how I could be too. She didn't hide herself from anyone. She was confident and always tried to teach everyone to be their true selves. I liked making the zine because I thought it was really fun to decorate it, and I feel like I also learned a lot in the process of making it. And then whenever I read the book now, I feel like you can also learn even more because it's different stories about all different types of icons.
Hi, my name is Oscar Zepeda. I'm a New America student. I make my scene about Cassandro. I like his story because it's very interesting how he changed the world of wrestling or lucha libre without breaking traditions and don't be the bad guy. I like doing it because it's interesting to learn more about it, about Cassandra history and more queer icons that maybe we don't think about it too much because we are not part of the queer community, but it's important to know and good. And that's it.
Hello, my name is Elisa Valdez and I'm from New America. Thank you guys for being here today. And my queer icon was Gladys Bentley. I chose to do this one because I wanted to see how the gay rights were back then and how people were treated of color back then. And she was one of those both, so that was very interesting. I really like doing this zine, just to represent, the LGBTQ community. I love having gender ethnic class. That is, Ms. Myers teaches us very much about that, and I really appreciate it for her. I love doing the zine, and I love everybody's artwork. It was very fantastic, and I love the book and the curiosity and of everybody. And just seeing it all pieced together is just absolutely wonderful. And yeah.
Well, that's a tough act to follow. So, I am the art teacher at J. Paul Taylor Academy. And our namesake was a pioneer of social justice. And I thought that this was such a golden opportunity. The whole team, the gender studies, women gender studies team, I'm so grateful for. It wouldn't have been possible without you guys. It was such a unique opportunity for a baseline assignment to be created through helping these K through 8th grade. A lot of the kids didn't even know what social justice is, let alone, oh, what are these hot button topics? I'm like, raise your hand if you know what this means. And they're like, well, I've heard of it, but I don't know what it is. So I was like, okay. So we had to start baby steps. And this whole unit, these are, just gonna airlift them. We have one zine for every grade. It was a very challenging and beautiful process of getting them to understand that their voice matters, getting them to identify social justice issues. And you've seen in the slideshow flashing by, we've got the black and white ones. And I wanted students to choose topics that they were passionate about, rather than me outlining for them, because it's a brand new. It's getting them to be critical thinkers, assess the world around you. What do you see? What's important to you? What makes you, how do you want the world to be better? So they created, after much research, they created their own pages to contribute to these class zines. And it was a really unique process that labor of love. And the youngers, kinder and first grade, they chose to do love books, because of course, to create politically charged pages for a kindergartner, they're like, what? So it was really precious. You've seen a couple of the pages flash by too, and the basis of all of this is love, right? And just being aware of that, and how would you like to be treated, no matter who you are, no matter where you've come from, no matter what you believe, you deserve everything that everybody else is getting, and we all deserve love. So I don't know if I touched on all of my topics I wanted to talk about, but in essence, in a nutshell, and we're following in the footsteps of John Paul Taylor. He was a huge, he didn't sit. He was not a sitter. He was a doer. He was a pioneer of action, social justice in action. And so that's the seeds that I planted in this unit for the students. And it was cool to see that come to fruition in our pages. So beautiful. And thank you, Dr. Laura, for your springboarding us into this this awesome experience. The end.
I would really like to thank both Monica and Kayla for doing the hard part of teaching social justice. I mean, I did the easy part of like making their classrooms messy with teaching them what zines are. But these are on the table out front if you want to have a look at more of these students' pages after our panel. So I wanted to begin by contextualizing the practice of zine making within a feminist tradition of do-it-yourself media making. Dr. Jonet and I have been making, teaching, and assigning zines since our very first semester here in 2008. I remember Kat assigning, I think maybe they watched in her class, a 2006 documentary called Girls Rock, which played at the Fountain Theater in Mesilla that semester, our first semester living here. The documentary focuses on a rock and roll summer camp for girls aged 8 to 18 that asserts the value of young girls having the opportunity to play in a rock band, giving them access to instruments, especially those typically coded as masculine, like electric guitars and electric basses, drum kits, and having peers as bandmates and having female musicians as mentors. The girls spend a week forming bands and learning to play their instruments and then collaboratively composing their own original songs, culminating, of course, at the end with a rock concert. And the doc tracks 4 individual girls as they reflect on their experiences. And an art student back in fall 2008, whose preferred medium was actually watercolor painting, turned in a reflective essay over the film as a zine, which was like the most appropriate medium for this reflective essay that's a movie review, kind of. That's a reflective essay over the film as a zine, folded from a single piece of paper. Like an 8-page paper, but smaller. That he was able to do this, folded from a single piece of paper, speaks both to the creativity of the student and also to the versatility and the appeal of the zine as a media form. How many other student reflective essays from fall 2008 do I remember this vividly, or even like carry around with me affectionately, right? We've assigned zines as longer term end of semester project. If you're in my class right now, you have that as an option for your final project. And also have co-created zines together with our classes. This one, the resulting zine from fall 2016, creates a really strong memory of this particular class where my students thoughtfully parsed the media coverage of a deeply gendered presidential election alongside the upcoming release we were all excited about for like Star Wars Rogue One or a return of the series Gilmore Girls. Like that's what, I mean, it was a snapshot of a moment because zines are ephemeral, right? But I remember this class really specifically. In 2016, as an effort that grew out of our teaching, research, creative scholarship, and outreach, Gender, Sexuality Studies, I began collecting, editing, printing, and distributing the social justice zine. With submissions from students and alumni community members and friends' family members and their friends, and it sort of branched out from them. When we began having conversations around planning today's symposium, I was introduced to Monica and Kayla to sort of think about coordinating a zine-making opportunity for the students at the J. Paul Taylor Academy and the New America School to contribute in some way to today's focus on social justice, to invite the students in these institutions to contribute with NMSU, basically. Having the students contribute to zines created that opportunity for us. My role in this collaboration was to introduce the students to the basics of what a zine is and the value of making them. There are many definitions and very few rules, but broadly, as you heard from Kat earlier, the zine is a small circulation, self-published, often handmade work. I like to stress to my own students that assembling the parts of a booklet do not yet constitute a zine, but adding the additional step of duplicating your work for another reader transforms your master copy into a proper zine. Like, there's a big folder of student work that you might see go by, but this is what's fun about it. None of us, Monica and the 200 students at the J. Paul Taylor Academy, and Kayla and her students in her ethnic and gender studies classes at New America School, could have anticipated or envisioned the zines that we've created together, that their students have made. But that's part of the alchemy of zine making. And I hope that everyone involved continues creating their own media, that each of these students makes their own. Now that you did it for class, do it on your own for fun and make them about whatever you want. Creating new opportunities to seize the means of production, to center your own voices, and to engage creatively in the pursuit of a more inclusive and just society.
So, thank you. All right, I'm going to ask some questions before we open it up to the floor. And I'd like to start with Kayla and Monica. You talked a little bit about your process and what you did, but we would like to hear more details. The breakthroughs, the challenges, the learning moments, and then I'm going to ask the students, we know why you picked who you picked, but I want to know how. That's what I want to hear next. So let's go ahead and start with Kayla and Monica, please.
Okay, so in gender and ethnic studies, we work off of the basis of essential questions. So for each unit, I come up with an essential question, and we spend 9 whole weeks trying to answer it together. So for this one, it was, how are we socialized into our gender roles? So we spent 9 weeks on that with the end goal of creating a zine at the end. So we introduced a lot of different queer icons throughout the 9 weeks. Who are the people from this region who are queer icons to us? Who can we relate to? Who have we heard about? Who's important in history? And so when there was some resistance too, because sometimes we don't all want to talk about queerness and it can be a very new topic for people or uncomfortable. All of us have some levels of internalized homophobia and fear of talking about these issues, especially in a classroom. And sometimes students would say, this is very new for me and I'm kind of uncomfortable talking about it. I haven't encountered this in school before. So that was one of my biggest challenges, is coming up against some discomfort or how new this topic was, or making students feel safe enough to discuss it. And the way that we came through was looking at the icons we already know and love. So we started off with Juan Gabriel, with Juanga, because, he's part of our borderland culture. Yeah, we know Juanga. So we looked at lyrics, we looked at his iconic outfits, we watched some music videos, and we talked about who he is, to us and in our lives and here in the Borderlands region. And then, there's still some resistance maybe to the idea of queerness in the classroom. So we pulled out Cassandro. And I don't know if you all have seen that new film. I definitely had to get permission slips for that. And the students can attest to how bad I am at pausing at the bad parts and then resuming. They saw some things maybe they weren't supposed to. But we saw the film Cassandro in class. And one of the students, I'm sorry if I'm misquoting him, he's here today, but he said something like, Cassandro literally kicked homophobia's ass, miss. And I'm like, yes, he did. Yeah, so seeing icons in our own communities. Cassandro is from El Paso. And like Oscar was saying, and I'll let Oscar talk more about Cassandro, but he's a person that we've grown up with and who has changed the face of our culture and who is a beloved part of our culture and lucha libre and helping us think about masculinity. So really, it's not about what I could teach or what I could say, but finding the people in our own community who are already doing that and are already educating our culture. So we came in hot with Juanga and then Cassandro, and then kept looking at some icons. Sylvia Rivera was one that was pretty a breakthrough for some students, because I have some Puerto Rican students who are non-binary, and they're like, Miss, it's me. I didn't know there was already a me. This is my history. So just seeing non-binary people in our history and people of the same ethnicities was really exciting for students. And so then from there, it kind of just snowballed onto its own. And we found people that students wanted to discover more about and learn about. And then it turned it over to them. And I think that it was also tricky trying to make sure that I kept the anti-capitalist, seizing the means of production sort of spirit of zines, because I also have to give grades. So I didn't want them to feel as if they were being graded for their creativity or their product or their ideas or who they chose. But I got some really great resources from gender and sexuality studies on how to present it and grade it. So there was grading the final project and the research and citing your sources and the final reflection, and then answering of the essential question: how does your queer icon help you understand how you're socialized into your gender roles, or how did they change gender socialization for you? So we graded on those aspects instead of on the final product of the zine, which my hope was that it allowed students to be more open and creative with how they put it all together. So that was more of kind of the details and the process, and just getting them printed and handing them out the other day made me so happy. I cried later because I didn't want to be weird and cry in front of all my students, but I cried later. It was really exciting. So I'll pass it over to Dr. Laura.
Big mouth, I can just talk. It does? Hello. Ooh. Hello. No. Okay, so can you guys hear me enough? Okay. Kind of echoing what I had said before, I love the grading that you spoke on. I think that that's really important because we don't want our students to feel judged for their expressing what's important to them, or even touching on a topic that they might not be so sure about, especially with this type of content. But as I said before, the content that I taught was just getting these kids to understand the basis of what social justice means. And as I had said, a lot of them were like, I don't know. And with a K-8 spread, where do you begin with that, right? So I chose actually to begin with the story of Nelson Mandela. And it was a really powerful, it was a children's version, of course. And I made the middle schoolers watch it too. I was like, this is great, It it's just about helping oppressed groups of people and getting them to realize, wait a minute, what I do is going to actually make a difference at some point. And they were excited that their pages were going to be on view here at the symposium, because I said, this is not just for your portfolios. This is what you think is going to go home. And I didn't limit their subjects of what they wanted to choose to write about. That was really important to me, because it's just helping them develop that critical thought process. So they got to choose, and I'm not on TikTok. I'm scrolling on my phone because I made myself some notes. And then from the educator perspective, you know, Mr. Taylor left us with an amazing legacy for fighting for oppressed groups of people. And I really wanted students to understand that that is a way that you can live and be in the world. And beginning with that powerful story of Nelson Mandela and springboarding forward, like, hey, any issue that you identify is an issue, right? And like I say, all these beautiful, oh, here we go, actually. Look how cute. You know, I let them, we sat at the board, we brainstormed. I said, okay, here's a couple of examples of social justice issues. Now, you give me what you think are some issues. And each class, all 9 classes, well, I'm sorry, sans kinder and first, because they're still they're at a different level. But second grade, I was the most shocked about my second graders, because I thought, well, that's a Bridgepoint grade band, because it's like, okay, they could be totally ready and into this, or they would just be like, I just want to write about love, you know, and okay, cool. But they got into it. They were like firing off all these ideas about, you know, these social justice issues, and it was so powerful, because I thought, oh my gosh, and they grabbed out their little iPads and they did their, you know, women's, you know, like I brought up some inequities here and there in different subgroups, subcultures in society, and trying not to drive their thinking, but guide it rather. So that's always a challenge as a teacher, right? If you want open-ended, and really their hearts and souls just went into this, and I really love it. And the biggest challenge was, I wrote, going back to that, they didn't know what it was to begin with. So starting from scratch was the biggest challenge. And I wished I had more, like some quarter to work on it. That would have been cool, but it's just, this was such an organic unfoldment. And I know you can also attest to that, Laura. Like, it was just this unfoldment that it was just one thing after the next, and feeling in a dark closet, it felt like sometimes. But it was awesome. The outcome was so meaningful, and their learning moments were beautiful, and just seeing their little light bulbs turn on in their minds. And it's like, wow, I did my job as an educator, helping them awaken to, even if it's just one issue that's important to them, that opened the door of creating a pattern of thought of like, hey, when you get older, you can continue this thought, and it can grow, and it can, you know, you can identify other issues that you find important, that you find that you're passionate about. And through creating zines is a wonderful way to articulate your ideas and communicate your ideas to the world, and people will read it. Maybe not everybody, but it's the ripple effect. And so it was just a very, very exciting to see that turn on for kids and begin to mirror the work that John Paul Taylor did for our society here in our area, which is a pretty neat thing to be a part of. So I'll end there.
You both said just such incredible things. And the work that both of you have done, from the workshop initially and to creating somehow seasoned zine makers on their first attempt, is really something. I mean, as you can see, somebody from K through 8 knows Kathleen Hanna. So, you know, that's not a zine if you don't have Kathleen Hanna in it. But in speaking of other luminaries, I'd love to hear from the students about how you picked who you did. Was there a process, or did you come wanting to create about this person? Did you discover the person? And then how did you make your piece?
My zine was based off of Gladys Bentley, and I chose her because I wanted to do somebody that I hadn't heard of or I didn't know much about. And I did her because I heard another student was doing her, and I thought her story was kind of interesting. She was known for her bold personality and her style, because she would wear suits and she would get hated on a lot for it because she was a girl. And she wrote songs, and I put a song in my zine, and I thought this one was kind of funny. She wrote, "What make you men folk treat us women like you do? I don't want no man that I got to give my money to." I thought that was kind of funny. She was she had a really powerful voice, and people said that her performances were full of passion. And like I said, she was known for her unique style and her challenging society's norms and being an open lesbian. Yeah, that's it. Oh, you have one.
I picked Cassandro because so I really know Cassandro before class, but I I like his story of the movie, and I like he is known for his style. Like he's the Juanga of the lucha libre. Uh, he also how I tell he he didn't break traditions like an exotico, but he changed it the world how he's watch it. So I think it's good how he changed it, and I think his history is powerful. That he didn't make it until he was not old, but man, yeah. He wasn't a teenager, so he waited for his moment, and he did great. That's it.
I also did Gladys Bentley. I really wanted to work on somebody that was from a different era, somebody that I haven't heard before, somebody that is, different. Gladys was very interesting to learn about. She was a lesbian, and she was born in Philadelphia. She started her music career in I think it was jazz clubs and clubs. She was very popular for her songs and some dances. I really like doing this piece because I'm very creative, and I love, putting stuff together and seeing how it all turns out. That's I like to see what I'm capable of, and this really helps bring out my creativity, and also learning about LGBT community and the the people that created why we have gay laws now, and I I really appreciate you guys for being here and showing us so much support for these zines. And I also want to thank Miss Williams for making our zines into a book, because I didn't know we could make so many pages in a book. So, yeah.
Okay, I'm now going to pass it to Laura. So Laura's going to talk about that exact process, about the getting the raw content and the huge layout process and assembly process that it took. It's too many to count hours to put those together. So Laura, why don't you talk to us about it? And please connect it also to the importance of participatory media and also its connections to our field in gender and sexuality studies, where it holds a special place.
Right. I mean, I think that's, I started by sort of foregrounding, like, everyone can make zines, and there are no rules for zines. And so I'm always conflicted about introducing zines in a classroom where there's typically like an assignment with guidelines and limits, right? Like page length or word count or whatever. Because really, you should have, you can make a zine about anything and it can look like anything. But I agree, I didn't know it could be this many pages either. So I'm calling this one a zine. I'm calling this one a zine anthology, because each of you all made your own zines, and all I did was sort of put them together. And they were really something. So I think, I don't know quite what the question I'm being asked is, but I'm going to talk about the zine process separately, because Kayla's class was really very specifically defined, and so it was super easy to, well, complicated, but straightforward to sort of digitize and then put these in order. And I really appreciated that Kayla created a table of contents that put the students' work in order for me, because that's something I would spend time thinking about, like what should go first. And it ended up being by chance that she said, right, Kayla, that it's just in order of when the students turned it in, right? Because it really works quite well. Because the very opening piece, and I'm so sorry Cinthia couldn't be with us this morning, she was supposed to be one of our speakers, is this incredible zine about Juan Gabriel, El Divo de Juarez, right? And in her zine, it's amazing. It's just, it's too much. I have to speak on her behalf, because she included a page about his incredible outfits, but then instructions to create your own Juan Gabriel outfits and like origami instructions. And it's just like, it was origami in her zine. And when I got to it, I was like, wow, what's the rest gonna be like, right? And the same thing with Oscar's, there are a couple of Cassandro, right? There's two Freddie Mercurys and 3 Gladys Bentleys, but the wonderful thing about zines is that even though they're about the same topic, everybody has a different approach. And Oscar does comics, original comics, which is really incredible. So, I mean, I just really loved seeing what the prompt Queer Icons produces. And that's both an engagement, well, it's three things: an engagement with historical people, right? Gladys Bentley, people in the present, right? And also imagining a future. And that's what's really important about creating a space for creativity and imaginative works, is it allows people to imagine a marginalized and oppressed groups, but imagine a future for them, imagine their existence, their continuation into a future. And so, like, I'm also sorry for the student who came who has a fictional character, you know, just as an act of imagination, imagining a future for queer, non-binary individuals of color. So I found it really, like, just touching to assemble this. So I'm really grateful to have worked with you guys as students and Kayla. With the Academy, I worked with Monica, and I did a zine workshop in one class of fifth graders, one fifth grade art class, and I was like, that was awesome. I would love to make a zine with these 20 kids. And then we talked about the possibility of having every student in the school put something together, and I'm like, that sounds great too. Without really considering the timeline or the volume of paper or just individual submissions, and then the sort of logistics. And so what Monica might have been referring to is my panicked text messages like, backup plans, what if we did this? And and I am deeply grateful to Ricky Araiza and to Patty Wojan just to sort of help me look at the students' work and to think about it. And really lean into the variety and even messiness of the process, right? Because it's like, I didn't know what I was going to get. So what we learn, what Monica gets to see organically, I got to look at as a kind of zine editor, that these kids, these K through 8s, ideas about social justice, I really got to see it develop while I was making the zine. So in kindergarten, we have love, and first grade, we have kindness and friendship. And then second grade, you're right, it begins to get really interesting, because then, bam, they understand vulnerability. They want to protect animals and children and women. Animals, and specific animals like fish or birds or snakes or sharks or dolphins, or in one case, a T-Rex. Protect animals. Then we get more complex ideas like race, money, just as a concept. And I love the third and fourth graders. There's one with 3 pictures. We have characters that teach us about. So we have a character named Hot Diggy Dog teaching us about women's rights, and also a series of avocados teaching us about women's rights. A Mr. Peanut, and then separately a Mr. Tie and a Mr. Ruler teaching us about elderly rights. A Mr. Goose, a 6 or 8 page spread about classism. I love Mr. Goose. Mr. Goose might be my favorite character. And then as they get older, issues emerge in ways that become less abstract and more concrete, right? Like instead of women's rights, we start thinking about women's and girls' access to education and voting and pay equity, like very specific things. Instead of just money as an idea, we start thinking about unhoused people and the cost of healthcare for humans and also for animals. We have the idea of border crossing and the complications. Mental health. I'm sorry I didn't include a slide of the mental health because it's really amazing. There were 2 mental health pieces, and they both really articulate all the stressors we all have in our lives, right? And also seeking solutions to sort of support mental health. The students all have a strong notion of justice, of right and wrong, and also always an awareness of vulnerability, bullying, mistreatment of marginalized groups. Doing it comprehensive, right, with the Academy, that each has, we're really trying to include every single student. One of my roles was kind of assembling them, putting them in some sort of an order, right? And so I tried to begin with like a strong piece, like the ones that like catch your eye or are about important topics. The students who focus on J. Paul Taylor, I put them right up front. And then sort of the variety of topics allows you to see the different ways these students have commitments to these different ideas that really reflects like this cultural moment we live in, and also the specificities of our region too. So it's been really illuminating for me. And I like something I love about this is like this was made in the spring of 2024 with these kids. And and the same thing with Kayla's class. It's like there are certain sort of visual components or current events that reflect this moment right now. in the same way that my zine from fall 2016 reflects a very specific moment in time, and I'm going to remember that. I'm going to remember these students too. So I just really encourage you guys, everyone, really everyone in the room, to like think about the stuff that you care about, think about the topics you're obsessed with, that you know more about than all of your friends, that you're always wanting to tell people more about, and they're like, yeah, right. And make a zine about that. And then you can like have an audience and share your ideas, your perspectives, your expertise, your little obsessions. And you can include humor. I mean, some of these end up injecting humor, like the one about healthcare, you know, I need a checkup, that'll be $60,000. Like, gets at a very specific feeling, but in a way that ends up providing a bit of levity in an anthology that's really about a lot of social crises we all contend with. So, all right, that's too much. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Before we open it to questions, I would like to give Kayla and Monica and even Laura an opportunity to talk about pieces they created for this. I know that you made a piece, Kayla, and then Monica, you did covers, and Laura, you may have inserted a little something just in one. Okay, I remember seeing an image of Kayla saying, "Zines are magic." That's fun. But I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Kayla.
Yeah, there's a cartoon version of me now that I think I might put as my new profile pic. Dr. Williams drew me as a cartoon in the beginning of our zine, and it's really cute. And then herself as well, and kind of a cute little image of us working on our zines together. And it's true, I think I yelled that in your face one time, "Zines are magic! What is this magic?" Yes, direct quote. Oh, I yelled at you through text. It was all caps. So yes, I created a piece also because in the words of Dr. Laura, zines are really democratizing. So I wanted to create along with my students, and I didn't know how much I needed it until I was doing it. So my piece is at the very end, and it's a collage with some pretty florals. I hope you get a chance to go see it out in the lobby. And it's in honor of two students that have been lost. One student, Next Benedict, who you may have heard of, who was murdered at their own school, directly related to the myriad of anti-queer policies that we have in different states, in our schools, and to the homophobia and the queerphobia that is a huge part of our society that we're working towards ending. So there's kind of a collage about the things that Next love, like their cats and flowers and plants and things like that. And then the other side is a student that I lost at the previous school I taught at Alma de Arte, Malachi. And both of these students were queer. Both of these students experienced a lot of bullying. Both of these students were the victim of school policies and administrators who were very anti-queer and made hateful environments that allowed other students to treat them hatefully, to the point where one lost his life to suicide and one lost their life to violence. So I didn't even know that's what I wanted to create, and that's one of the reasons zines are magic, because I just started kind of putting pieces together, and that's who I wanted to talk about and think about is these students, and they're really the reason that I still teach ethnic and gender studies, and that I hope that this is a curriculum that can grow and be a part of more schools, because as Day Romero said on the panel we were at earlier today, this kind of lesson planning really saves lives. Students need these spaces to learn how to have empathy and acceptance of all different kinds of people, and to have empathy and self-love for themselves too, to battle the internalized oppression that they are inundated with daily in all the spaces they move in. We all need spaces to heal from that and to undo that internalization and realize it's not us, there's nothing wrong with us, it's the systems that we live in, and we control those systems, so we can dismantle those. If we created it, we can uncreate it and do something different, do something better. So that that piece of the zine was really healing for me to create and to kind of ground myself in why I teach gender and ethnic studies, and that I'm going to keep teaching that, and trying to create these spaces where students can heal with creativity. And I'm hopeful that it was healing for them to make something creative and beautiful and use washi tape and stickers to let out some of the heaviness too. Because there was also heaviness of students who were like, well, I never got to learn about this before, or I didn't know this existed, and if I didn't take this elective, I wouldn't have. So there were some students that dealt with a lot of heaviness around their own identity, or how their identity is treated outside of the classroom and in, in their community or with their family. So this kind of art and zine making for me was super healing. And I hope for the students also. But yeah, that's the piece that I included too, and what led me to that.
Which one is working? This one? Have to be kind of close. Okay. The piece of art, as my Frida Kahlo bag fell over, I did the cover. I really didn't, you can't see all the way. It's a collage. This art includes a portrait that was done by one of our parents, Teresa Balsalua, who is an awesome photorealistic artist. I actually went to art school with her, ironically. So I reduced the size and kind of played with the collage, and then we have Lady Justice here in the corner, and I tried to make it as general as possible, but meaningful to all grades. I wished I could have done a cover for each grade, but time and whatnot. And then I did write a little intro and no table of contents because I couldn't contain the ideas. It was way too vast. But to speak to add on to what Kayla was discussing about, opening that door of inclusivity and discussing social justice topics, and obviously Kayla's content was more focused, but I really loved that the opportunity opened to where we have so much diversity at our school. Let me backtrack. There's so much diversity in our 200 students, ethnicity, gender-wise, gender identity, whatever, it's there. We have it all. And I loved that I could open that doorway for students to begin to sort of melt the ice, as it were, because there was a little bit of tension in my middle school, one of my middle school classes, and I was just like, okay, we have to go on a positive note. We have to be positive about what we're speaking on, and really just, like I say, melting that ice, and like, we all deserve to be here. We're all important. Nobody's better than anybody else because they are different. We are all from the same source, we're all the same. And I loved how this exercise really melted that ice. I know I keep using that as a example, but that is the best way to word it. So these kids can start to identify within themselves, like they know or somebody in one of my classes, they're like, I know I'm very different, but I hope that practice helped them see themselves differently, little by little, And our school is pretty accepting, and I feel very grateful for that. We don't have a lot of tension in that department, thank goodness. But if there is, then it gets addressed. And anyway, in short, it was about the cover and the art. So I tried to include all the grades, the end.
Any questions from the audience?
My question for you guys was, what about when an inclusivity becomes negative? What about all the negative sides that have to come with inclusivity, with all the stuff that... Yeah, wait, what? Yeah, like the stuff that's going on nowadays with current events, like I want it to seem like I'm being feminine. What's the opposite of a feminist for guys? Misogynist? I'm not trying to be a misogynist here, but I was asking about the gender inclusivity for like men as well, because that's a thing that gets skipped over all entirely. And most things nowadays with inclusivity, like they say that they want to cater to men, but they don't know how to, or they don't know what they're going to do for it. My question is, how would you guys combat the negativity that comes with inclusiveness that you guys are talking about?
Well, I hope you've been here today because I think you will see that men and people of different genders are included. We are a modern gender and sexuality studies program and do teach masculinity studies. And inclusivity needs everyone, obviously. But when you're talking about inclusivity, what you're specifically talking about are not the people who are already here. You're talking about the people who are left out. You're talking about the people who get narrow entrances. You're talking about the people who get pushed out for myriads of reasons. So sometimes with our inclusivity, we might want to think about the people who are, let's say, the most deprivileged within a society and centering that, because what we believe is that if you lift the floor, it lifts everyone. Yeah, and social justice is a community process. And so if it's not uplifting everyone and only certain people, and it's becoming a part of our systems of, as you've talked about with capitalism and things like that, sometimes it's other things happening. But I would say, I think what you're talking about is backlash. That's what you're talking about, not like the problems of inclusivity, because technically we should want that, right? That's a good value. What we're talking about is the violation of a status quo, the violation of norms, and not positioning the same people and trying to have different approaches, even within academia, like we're talking about today. So yeah, I hope you can see this as an open space, a creative space, not just a critical space, but also sometimes when we hear these critiques, just wonder if you're hearing backlash, or wondering if you're hearing someone trying to deneutralize the work that people have been and are doing. And many people do work in these areas that get absolutely no recognition for it. And then, other people get, I always think about, Laura and I like to say, we had to make our own table in order to sit at it, right, Mary? And then we've invited people to our table, but we also have to make sure that we do not have a host that is serving us poison. That is something that we all must come together and get past differences in a way to create repair, so different groups of peoples can come together to create change. And I thank you all for coming out here. I hope to hell I see you at the film festival and the Zine Fest and checking out Ryan's film. Thank you all so much for supporting us, and I want to thank Kayla and Monica and Laura and Cinthia and everyone, especially the students who have been involved. Thank you, and thank you for being here today.